They are the richest family in Minnesota and one of the wealthiest dynasties on planet Earth. Yet most Americans have never heard their name. They don't build skyscrapers with their logo on top. They don't do interviews. But every single day, the food on your table passes through their empire. This is the story of the Cargill-MacMillan family. Their company, Cargill, is the largest privately held business in the United States. It touches roughly a quarter of all grain exported from America. And it has stayed almost entirely in the hands of one bloodline for over 150 years. To understand how they came to own Minnesota, we have to go back to 1865. The Civil War had just ended. A young man named William Wallace Cargill bought a single grain flat house in Conover, Iowa. That one warehouse was the seed of a global empire. William understood something simple but powerful. As railroads pushed west, farmers needed places to store and ship their grain. So he built elevators right along the expanding rail lines. Where the tracks went, Cargill went, and the grain flowed through his hands. By the 1870s, William had moved the operation to La Crosse, Wisconsin, and pulled in his brothers. The Cargill name spread across the Midwest, from Minnesota to the Dakotas. They stored grain, traded it, and moved it. Slowly, they became the invisible middlemen of American agriculture. Then came the twist that would define the dynasty. William's daughter, Edna Cargill, married a sharp businessman named John MacMillan. When William died in 1909, the company was deep in debt and nearly collapsed. It was John MacMillan who stepped in and saved it. That marriage fused two families into one. From then on, it wasn't just Cargill blood running the company. It was Cargill and MacMillan together, two branches of a single dynasty. And that partnership would go on to build one of the greatest fortunes in the world. John MacMillan pulled the company back from the brink and moved the headquarters to Minneapolis. Minnesota became the beating heart of the operation. Through the World Wars, grain became strategic power. Nations that could feed themselves survived, and Cargill fed the world. After World War II, Cargill exploded outward. It moved beyond storing grain into trading commodities across continents: soybeans, corn, wheat, salt, and eventually meat and cocoa. If it was a raw ingredient, Cargill found a way to buy it low, move it, and sell it high. The genius was staying private. Cargill never sold shares to the public. No Wall Street quarterly pressure. No outside owners. Every dollar of profit could be reinvested for the long game. That patience turned a regional grain trader into a colossus. Today, Cargill operates in around 70 countries and employs roughly 160,000 people. Its annual revenue regularly exceeds $160 billion, bigger than many public giants you know by name. And through it all, roughly 90% of the company remains owned by the Cargill-MacMillan family. That ownership has created an astonishing number of billionaires from a single family. At various points, the Cargill-MacMillan clan has produced more billionaires than almost any family on Earth. Estimates place the family's combined fortune well north of $50 billion, and possibly far more. At the center of it all sits Wayzata, Minnesota, a wealthy lakeside town just west of Minneapolis. Cargill's global headquarters is not a glass tower downtown. It's a sprawling estate-like campus on the shores of Lake Minnetonka. Power hidden behind trees and quiet money. The family's real estate reflects that same quiet philosophy. Sprawling estates around Lake Minnetonka, ranches, and country properties. They don't flash their wealth like tech founders. In Minnesota, the biggest fortune in the state moves like a ghost, everywhere and nowhere at once. But this family is far from a single unit. Over 5 generations, it has branched into dozens of heirs across the Cargill and MacMillan lines. Some work inside the company, many do not. And that sheer number of owners created one of the strangest challenges any dynasty can face. By the late 20th century, the family faced a problem. Too many heirs wanted cash from a company that reinvested everything. Tensions simmered between those who worked in the business and those who simply inherited shares. A private empire suddenly had a very public family feud brewing. The breaking point came in the 1990s. To keep peace and give heirs liquidity, Cargill made a landmark move. It acquired a controlling stake in Mosaic, a fertilizer giant, and later distributed shares to family members. It was a pressure valve for a dynasty ready to burst. One heir became the most famous face the family ever had, mostly against their private nature. Margaret Cargill, a great-granddaughter of the founder, lived modestly and shunned the spotlight. But when she died in 2006, the world learned just how enormous her hidden fortune truly was. Margaret left the vast majority of her wealth to charity. Her philanthropies were seeded with billions of dollars in Cargill stock. Today, the Margaret A. Cargill philanthropies rank among the largest charitable foundations in the United States, funding the arts, disaster relief, and the environment. But not every chapter is charitable. As Cargill grew into a global giant, it drew serious criticism. Environmental groups have accused the company of links to deforestation in the Amazon and Southeast Asia, tied to soy and palm oil supply chains. Feeding the world, critics say, came at a cost. Cargill has also faced scrutiny over labor practices in cocoa supply chains and food safety recalls over the years. The company has pledged reforms and sustainability targets. But when you touch a quarter of the world's food trade, every problem in the food system eventually lands on your doorstep. Despite the controversies, the family's grip never loosened. Where other dynasties sold out, cashed in, and faded, the Cargills and MacMillans held on. A carefully designed system keeps ownership inside the family and rewards those who help the business grow rather than those who simply want to spend. Today, several family members personally rank among the richest people in America. Names like James Cargill, Marianne Liebman, Pauline MacMillan Kyneth, and Whitney MacMillan, who led the company for years, have all held fortunes estimated in the billions. Each one a quiet Midwestern billionaire. Whitney MacMillan was the last family member to serve as CEO, stepping down in 1995. Since then, the company has been run by professional outside executives, but the family still controls the board and the ownership. They let others drive, while they own the entire road. That structure is the secret sauce of the dynasty. By separating ownership from daily management, the family avoided the classic curse of inherited businesses, where a weak third or fourth generation runs everything into the ground. Instead, Cargill kept hiring the best minds while the family kept the profits. The scale of what they touch is hard to imagine. Cargill supplies beef to major fast food chains. It processes eggs, salt, chocolate, and animal feed. It trades steel and operates a financial arm. When you eat a burger in America, there's a real chance Cargill was somewhere in that supply chain. They also move the physical world. Cargill runs one of the largest privately owned fleets of ships and barges, hauling commodities across oceans and rivers. Grain elevators, ports, rail terminals, and pipelines stretch across continents. It is infrastructure most people never see, but depend on completely. Back home in Minnesota, the family's influence runs deeper than dollars. Cargill is one of the state's largest employers and a pillar of the Twin Cities economy. Their philanthropy funds hospitals, universities, and the arts across Minneapolis and St. Paul. The state and the family are quietly intertwined. Yet you'll rarely see the Cargill name on a stadium or a headline. That is deliberate. This is a family that learned, over more than a century, that the safest fortune is an invisible one. Attention brings scrutiny, taxes, and rivals. Silence brings survival. So how big is the fortune really? Because so much is private, estimates vary wildly. The family's combined wealth is often placed between $40 and $60 billion, spread across roughly 100 family members. Some analysts believe the true figure is significantly higher, hidden inside a company no outsider can fully audit. That secrecy is exactly why the Cargill-MacMillans fascinate people. In an age where billionaires post their lives online, this family does the opposite. They have turned invisibility into an art form, and it has protected their empire through wars, recessions, and 5 generations of change. But the future holds a real question. Each generation adds more heirs and more distance from the founder who built it all. Will the 6th generation care about grain elevators and cocoa supply chains? Or will the pull of cash finally crack a dynasty that has held together for over 150 years? For now, the machine keeps running. Cargill continues to feed a growing planet, and the family continues to quietly collect. They own no famous logo you'd recognize on the street, but they may own a slice of nearly every meal you eat. That is a different kind of power. From a single grain warehouse in 1865 to a $160 billion global empire, the Cargill-MacMillan family didn't just get rich. They built a system designed to stay rich forever, silent, private, and utterly essential. They truly are the family that owns Minnesota and feeds the world. So the next time you sit down to eat, remember there's an invisible hand behind the harvest, one that traces back to a Minnesota lakeshore and a dynasty that chose silence over fame. If this story gripped you, subscribe for more untold empires of the ultra-rich. Because the biggest fortunes are always the ones you never see coming.